Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to a new episode. Welcome to the new people. As you can tell by the thumbnail, the coupe's back in the shed. And it now has an engine bay. So let's check that out. I left the car with Mitch from MJM Fabrications for a week or two or so. Went away to work and came back and picked it up. And while he had it, he's panelled the inner guards, he's filled those in. Done a relatively basic but nice clean design, which is exactly what I was after. Nothing extravagant. And he's also done the headers for the Godzilla. Nice set of 2-inch primary stainless headers. So I'll get the car up on the hoist. There's some other work I want to do on this that's going to go back to Mitch, but I'll get this up. We'll have a look at the pipes and the engine bay, see what's going on. In the previous video I mentioned about leaving the steering shaft and the starter motor in so you can work around everything. As you can see, it's a bit of work to get around all that stuff, but there's a lot of room in there still, and Mitch has done a fantastic job of getting everything in there. This side's very, very straightforward and basic. Unfortunately, the design of the heads with where the spark plugs are, where those boots come out, where the ports are and everything, doesn't lend itself to a perfectly symmetrical pair. But I'm very, very happy with the results on that. Before I lift the car up on the hoist to look at the underside of the headers, I do want to talk about this nice piece of billet here that I've got. In a previous video, I mentioned working on a solution for the throttle body pointing directly at the bonnet vent on the GT bonnets. Not an issue on a factory bonnet, a non-GS GT bonnet, but with the bonnet vents on these ones, the Whipple throttle body goes straight into the back of that vent. Kind of cool if you want a cold air intake, but if you want to run a filter or anything in the airbox, it's less than ideal. So I got in touch with Travis from Hammond Engineering in Victoria and started working on a solution for that. The first sort of prototype we came up with was this one. It's all 3D printed in plastic, which is fantastic for cost wise, just knocking up different variations. This one, it worked, it got it where I needed it to be, but it's quite thick, as you can see, like from the distance from this face to the other face is quite far, so it moves the throttle body quite a way. So the red one worked. It spaced the throttle body quite a way away, and but it gave us a general idea of a good starting point, I guess you could say. Trav went back to the drawing board and came up with this one, which is a much more streamlined version of the red one. A very, very neat one. Sent me this out really quick. So I tried this one on the car and it turned out perfect. It had the throttle body exactly where I needed it for bonnet clearance, nice and compact. And yeah, it just worked. So I said to Trav, we'll go ahead with this one. This is what I'm after. And in no time at all, he came back with this piece, which is exactly the same as this, but so Hammond Engineering in Victoria, Travis, thank you very, very much for this. It worked perfectly, and that gets, when I put the bonnet on you'll see, but I think I've had it on there before, but you can see it just clears under nicely. It's all a very nice fit. So Travis does have that on file, and he can make more of those if anyone's doing the same thing as me. He even had it anodized for me as a for service. But yeah, thanks Trav, I appreciate that. So ignoring the radiator support panel, I've still got to sort all that. But now that I've got the two inner guards in place and the firewall sorted, I can start dummying up things like where I'm going to put the wiring, the plumbing. I'm talking to Andrew from Swift-Tech Engineering, who made these beautiful valve covers. He's got some catch cans in the works, and billet catch cans. So I'm talking to him about those, put one of those each side. The current plan is to run an air box behind that headlight under that guard. There's quite a lot of space in there in front of, between the tyre and the radiator support panel for a large air box and a vent in the front behind the headlight. And I've got a silicon adapter coming to take this oval down to a 4-inch diameter pipe, and I'll run that down to a nice billet bulkhead there. So there'll be no air box in the bay, just a nice intake pipe through there. That's the current plan. I will run the factory power steering pump on this. I was going to run an electric one, but I've got the space to run it, and I can do nice clean plumbing for it. And that's just less load on the alternator. If it works, I might as well use it. But there is a lot I can do now that I do have these panels in place, so I can start setting everything up where I want it. I'll do all that now, so I can cut holes, do whatever I need to do, and then go back later and paint it all. I just need to grab the radiator support panel off Benny, and then I can get all this done, and that'll be a huge step as well. So a bit of a change from the front end of the car. Got a few jobs to do on the back here. The major one is the diff. I had this built a long time ago. It's a competition engineering housing, fabricated housing, and it's got RodTech floaters on the end. If you remember from one of my earlier videos when I went over the engineering list, I had to convert it from a 1/2-inch wheel stud to a 5/8 for engineering purposes. And I tried to, through RodTech, I tried to get new hubs for these floaters for 5-inch studs. They don't do them anymore for these. These are like a sort of an obsolete floater. So I tried modifying them myself, and it kind of worked, but it's not quite as nice as I'd like. So I've got to put new floater kits on it. I'm going to go, I've got on the F100 here, I've got Race Products ones, Queensland I believe. They're the go-to floater kits these days. Very, very nice piece. So I'm going to get Mitch to change those to Race Products. So I'm hoping to keep the same wheel offset and diff width while changing the floater kits. Mitch thinks that we can remove these floaters, so a bit of careful cutting and trimming, and put the new floater kit in so I can keep these same wheels. I did think about going to a different offset wheels, some either the same wheels. I would like to go to some new wheels, some different wheels, but I just can't decide on what I want. But these are 10-inch rims with a 325, but they're a 4.5-inch backspace. And my bead lock rims, my double bead locks, they're a 4-inch backspace, and they both fit under the car nicely. So that 1/2-inch difference doesn't seem to matter too much, especially running 275s on the bead locks. They're up on the shelf up here behind me. That's where I keep pointing up there. But So we think that's doable. So float is a big one. So this is one of the axles out of the coupe. It's a billet 35 spline, which is heavy duty. Most people, street cars, 31 spline. I went overkill with the 35 because I knew I was going to abuse it. These have been in the car for years, long time. They've done 4 drag challenges, so lots of abuse, lots of launches. Heavy car. In drag challenge trim, this was 1950 plus kilos, so almost 2 tons of car doing trans brake launches with the beard locked rims and sticky tires and good tracks. That's a lot of abuse. But you can sort of see this end is nice. All the splines are sort of nice and straight. But if you look at this end, I don't know how well it'll come up on camera. You can see that twist sort of halfway up the spline. Yeah, that's less than ideal. So I haven't broken them, and this is out of the 4 splined ends, so 2 axles, that's the only one that's got the twist in it. But it's a little bit concerning. I'm going to have a bit less power in this one with the blown engine, and I'm not going to have a trans brake. Well, there is a trans brake in the trans, but whether I use it or not. So new floaters, new axles. The center, that's also been in the car for a very long time. A lot of abuse. You've seen what I've done to the axles. The diff center's well due for some maintenance. So I've got to drop the diff, pull the center out, take that in to get checked out, drop the housing to Mitch, and get the floaters sorted when those come in. I'm not sure what the timeline will be with that. He's got a lot of work on without my stuff. So yeah, so there's the back end I've got to do. I'm going to start on that tonight. So while I'm under the back of the car, pretty much everything except for this trans cooler. So I run my trans cooler at the back of the car with the fan there. Mainly space. The lines are relatively short. If anything leaks, the oil's at the back of the car, not the front of the car. So that's the only thing that's staying under here. The single Bosch 044 pump, that was my prime pump. So to start the car, I'd run that for a few seconds before the big pump fired up. And the big pump, it's a little bit different. So this is the big pump that I'm referring to. It's a MagnaFuel Pro Outlaw 1000. It's a very large mechanical pump. While it's not physically large in person, it moves a lot of fuel. It's a big unit. I've got a dash 12 feeding it, and then the dash 12 all the way to the front of the car. This is a dash 10 feed into the 044 pump. So this one I switch on to prime the injectors to fire up the car, and then as soon as the car starts turning over, it's not fitted here at the moment, but I run a large cable drive back to this guy. So it's a hex drive, it's like a speedo cable. So if you search Waterman cable drive, I believe they were originally designed for NASCAR, maybe stock car as well. So that locates the engine, the fuel pump away from the engine, moves it to the back of the car. For safety reasons, these pumps are usually driven off the engine. So you have a drive belt and a small gear on the front of the pump, and this is just mounted off the block. This moves it to the back of the car. The good thing with those is you can move a lot of fuel, but the pump only turns as fast as the engine's turning. So when you're cruising around town or cruising on the highway, you're not driving this pump crazy. Everything under the boot here, all these 2 fuel pumps, all the plumbing, the big hoses up the front, the fuel cell in here, which has a water tank for the old water to air intercooler, which used to be in the back seat of the car. That's all coming out, and I'm just going to probably like a Raceworks 75 litre fuel cell with 3 internal fuel pumps. That's all I require for this one, and that'll still be enough for plenty of power. Everything I'll need in this one. But I can get rid of all these excessively large fuel lines here. Something else I may have mentioned previously. I haven't had a hoist to mention things under here previously, so I think that might not be the case. When I put the chassis connectors in, I also put a channel through the car, like a raised section where I could run battery lines and fuel lines and these fuel pump drive. So they all sit through here. This was the lowest part of the floor on the car, and they all go up through there to so they're protected from anything on the road getting snagged on anything or dragged or caught up. But yeah, not running the cable drive and these big fuel lines that'll free up some space under the car as well. So back to the headers. Again, 2-inch primaries. That's a 3.5-inch collector. Again, the work is fantastic. I'm really stoked with these. And while they're a 2-inch primary 4-into-1 header, I don't know if you can tell there, the bottom of the oil pan, the headers are actually above that. They're about 15, 20 mil higher than the bottom of the oil pan. So they are tucked up really nicely. Yeah, I can't wait to hear this straight out the headers. It's going to be done. Has to be done. So I've got the inner guards done. That's all looking really nice. The firewall's mostly done. There's still a bit of touching up to do on that. The last big piece of the puzzle, which I've been doing a bit of work on, the last video on the coupe, the radiator support panel. As I've discussed in the last videos, it's been chopped up that many times over the years for various intercoolers. It's just a mess. I could use sheet metal, fold some sheet metal up and fill it, but I wanted it to look factory. That's one part of the car that I want to look really nice. So I've been chasing a radiator support panel for it. I've mentioned in other videos also that Benny from Jet Ski's Garage has said that he's got a radiator support panel there for me at his place. He said it's an okay condition one, it's pretty good, it's there if I want it. So yesterday I made the long journey down to his place. It's he lives on the opposite side of Adelaide to me, quite a way away, 1.5 hours, so a 3-hour round trip to get down to see Benny. So between us working different rosters and living so far away from each other, we don't get to see each other as much as we'd like, which is unfortunate because I get on really well with Benny. He's a great guy, very knowledgeable, very helpful, but just fun to hang around with. And he's also got his Godzilla project, so check out his channel, XC Coupe with Godzilla in it. He's making a lot of, well, he's working on parts to put Godzillas into factory engine bays in these Falcons, so check that out if you're interested in that sort of stuff. If you're watching this, you probably are. But yeah, I love hanging out with Benny. I just don't get to see him anywhere near as much as I'd like to, which is unfortunate, but that's how it works. But I did go down yesterday, 1.5 hours, and picked up this radiator support panel, and it's a lot nicer than he let on, so we'll have a look at that. It's been sitting for a while. The paint's, it's not factory paint. It looks a little bit yucky from a distance, but it's actually a really nice unmessed with factory radiator support panel. It's a bit bent up there. I'm not using those parts, so that's okay. but the main guts of it, all this area here that I need to replace on mine, it's all very, very nice. It's not dented, it's not twisted. It's a 6-cylinder radiator support panel, so it has the narrow opening, which it works out really well for me. It hasn't been cut for the V8s or anything. V8 radiator is quite a bit wider. I've got the PWR radiator, which I'll open up shortly, but that's relatively narrow, so I'll probably cut to these ribs, whatever measurement suits. But if I can keep these little structural bits, that'd be very nice. But there's no excess holes that have been drilled. These are the factory headlight wiring loom holes. These two here, can't remember exactly what they're for, but something factory, probably aircon brackets. Those two on factory, but something that this has, that all of the radiator support panels have, from the factory Falcon 500s through to the GS and GT models. These 4 indents here, and there's 2 marks in the middle as well. Where those 4 holes are, or 4 indents, that's where the holes are drilled for the backing plates for the GT driving lights, the GS GT driving lights, which I do want to put back in my car. I'm not going to be running those carbon fiber vents anymore, so intakes. So I'm going to put the driving lights on. So it's got all the marks for those. It's not twisted, it's not bent. These panels are really nice. So I'll fill these holes. I might try fill these holes, and I'll be cutting out around through here, down here, and replacing all that section on that. The other parts I need, all this here is untouched, that's all factory. These creases are factory from the folding process, but my car has got big bits cut out for intercooler piping on both sides. I didn't quite get as far as I'd like to, but I've got the sections cut out of the radiator support panel. I've got all those cut out. Was just about to pull the engine. I've got the headers out. That's the new radiator in the box there. If you need a lift plate for Godzilla, Benny sells those as well. I'll put the link in the description. Laser cut, powder coated. So I picked one of those up off Benny while I was down there. I've got my big one that I use for setting up the engine mounts, but it's very, very bulky. This one's nice. It's a nice piece. So I have to pack up. I've run out of time. Not just for the video. I've got some flights to take. I've got to go away for work. I've got to do some training, and then I've got to go spend about a week in New Zealand. I lost a friend recently, and I've got a memorial over there I've got to go back to, so I'm going to catch up with some friends and go through that. So next job in the coupe is get this engine out, clean up all this old stuff on the radiator support panel, trim up the new pieces, put those and weld those up, and drop the diff off, get the floaters done. I'm looking at going to a different offset on the wheel, a deeper dish on the 10s, a 3.5 inch backspace instead of the 4.5 inch backspace, just to get that extra bit of dish that looks cool on these things. Other than that, yeah, it's down to ordering a whole lot of parts now. Catch cans, bulkhead fittings for this, oil filter relocation. I've got to look into a heat exchanger for the supercharger and the pump and everything for that. So there's a whole lot of stuff to go into that engine bay that I want to get done before the paint goes on, just to get everything in the right place, brake lines, all sorts of things. I also have started doing a bit of work on the truck, the brake booster. You can probably tell that step's been removed. The brake booster's been taken in to get rebuilt, and some other stuff, but I'll leave that one for its own separate video. Next one will be the coupe. Hopefully I can get some stuff thrown at the coupe. Yeah, so I'll leave that for next time. Thanks for watching again, guys. Thanks for those who have subscribed. Please do if you haven't. Otherwise, I'll catch up with you guys next time. Thanks again. Cheers.